Hi friends, welcome to our channel Tech Developer. In this video, we will continue towards our user API development. So let's continue. So in my last video, we were creating our user form and were doing some validation work. I think the validation work is left only the little one. That first of all, let me check that I have. Do we have any group for maintaining at the rate length annotation? So let's go to the validation annotation package and inside the group. So yes, guys, we have the length group and inside the sequence, the length group is already maintained. So first of all, let's go to the user form and add the group for the length annotation. The group name will be length group dot class. Just copy the same group and paste it inside the other length annotation. Just paste it in the another annotation where we are using the length annotation. So we have completed the length annotation validation part. What we left now, we left that we need to validate all the skill IDs are existing or not. So for that, let's create an annotation. Go to the validation annotation package and create an annotation name is skill ID is valid or not, or you can give it as a name as you prefer. So go to the annotation and the annotation will be let I'm giving the name of annotation is validate skill IDs or validate user provided skills. Retention should be the one-time retention and target will be of type field that should be documented. Let's create. So we have created our annotation. Let's copy the format of the annotation interface in which we will provide the message, the group and the payload. So this will be the same here, and inside the message we will say that validation messages are public static final string user skills are not valid. User dot skills dot invalid. Let me add this message here inside the validation part. So user skills are not valid, and similar other things will be the same. Now let's create the implementation for that. Go to the validation annotation and create a class, and let's give the name of the class is validate user provided skills implementation, or IMPL you can say, and just finish and implements the constraints validator, and the constraint validator first part will be the annotation type for which we are providing the implementation here. So the validation type is validate user provided skills, and the type T, that is the type of data we will contain the set of long, so the skill IDs. So we can give it here as set of long. Let's override all the unimplemented methods. So is valid is the unimplemented method we need to validate here, or we need to implement. So first of all, mark it as a component, that is it is a string component, and we need the validation. We need the repository here for validation purpose. So we are going to validate the skill related data. So definitely we will be required the skill repository. So let's annotate auto word annotation for the skill repository, and let's use the auto add. So the set of long will be the skill IDs. We need to check that all skill IDs exist or not. So first of all, we need to create a set of long for non-existing IDs. New set. And after that, we need to uh, do the looping dot for each, and the skill ID. We need to check that boolean is skill ID exists. So we need to do a skill repository dot exist by ID. We need to provide the skill ID here. It will return the boolean, and if not is skill ID exists, then we need to add that skill ID to the non-existing skill IDs. And after that, what we will do, we will return the true or false. So if we will need to return that if the non-existing skill set or the non-existing ID set is empty, it means that all IDs which are provided by the user are valid. So we will return the valid equals to true, otherwise we will return the false. So this is the implementation for the our annotation validate user provided skills. So I think we need to give a rename that by mistake I have given it a wrong name. Rename the file to this. So the implementation of for the validation of custom validation, that is to the validate a user provided skill, has been completed. We need to add that implementation to the annotation. Uh, there is annotation, yeah, here it is, and we need to add the it constraint validated by validate user provided skill IMPL class. Now each and everything happened, and what we left now, we left to annotate it on the user form, the skill IDs field. So we need to use it at the rate validated, or sorry, validate user provided skills, and message is already there. We need to only define the groups. So groups will be It is a DB constraint group. We have already created that in our earlier videos. If you are following my videos continuously, you will understand that what the group name is and why I have used the group constraint here. So for now our validation part or the user form is completed. We just need to use it inside the REST API. So go to your user controller and create a method public response entity of type response DTO, which will contain the type of data for user DTO. So user DTO. Let me create this user DTO as a class, not the interface, and similarly the task DTO also the class. Then go to your user controller. We will give the type of data which the response DTO will contain. So response DTO will contain the type of user DTO data, and the method name will be the add user, and we will use add the 8 validated annotation for the validation purpose, and validated annotation will contain the value attribute in which we will provide the sequence. So we have the sequence available here, validation sequence dot class. After that we will annotate the request body here, and request body will be user form, and user form the binding result will be added. Go add the 8 post mapping, and what we need to return the object. So return new response util of type user DTO dot generate controller response, and the controller response will the method generate controller response will contain the response GTO, and that response GTO will come from the user service. So we need to auto the user service here, user service object this will be auto, and we will say user service dot create user form which we have given to him, and go to the implementation now. So we do not have any user service implementation yet, so let's create a service implementation class and name it as a user service IMPL. Implements the user service interface, and the class will be annotated with add the wait service. Let's override all the methods inside the user service. Let me remove the auto generated or to do comment. So now we have create user service method we need to implement inside this, and for that we will definitely require the user repository to be added. So let's add the user repository inside the class and auto add that object. So private user repository, user repository at the rate auto add, and now user we will create a user object. Let me check that we have a constructor. No, so we do not have a constructor with a parameterized constructor. So I think lot of fields are there. So instead of creating a constructor for large number of arguments, let's create the builder. So I will use the annotation at the rate builder. So I will say that instead of new user, I will say user dot builder dot. I will set the data now. That is for the first name. User form dot get first name dot last name, user dot last name. So user form dot last name dot username. So user form dot get username, and for the password, let's add the user form dot get password, and after that dot set of skill. Okay, so we need to provide the set of skills, so that I will take it here from above, and just finally we need to build the object. So we need to pass the set of skills. So let's create the object first for the set of skills. User form dot get skill IDs dot for each. Let me create the empty set for that, and it will make us easy to add the data. So the for loop for each loop, skill object, that is skill ID. I think instead of using the for loop guide, let me fetch all the skill set using the IDs. So what for that I will add the skill repository here. So let me add the skill repository also. Private skill repository at the rate auto add skill repository dot find by IDs. Okay, and find all by IDs. Find all by IDs. So we need to give the iterable of long IDs. So I will give it the user form dot get skill IDs. and it will return me definitely the set of skills. The skill set will be provided to me. How it is doing, guys? Basically, you can go with the for each loop. Means you can iterate each and every object and then hit the internally the database and bind the object and then add it to the headset. But it will not be the good idea. So what I did that using the query I am getting the set of skills, sorry, list of skills using this find all by IDs, in which I am passing all the IDs which are inside my user form dot get skill ID, and that is returning me the list of skills. So I have the set of skills which is containing the set of skills, not the list of skills. So what I did, I uses the object of headset and pass the collection of list so that it can create the skill set for me. And so we have the skill set now. We will need to pass the skill set here, and it will the object has been built. What we need to do now that let me check that what we have inside the user DTO. So for now we do not have anything inside the user DTO. What I will do, I will just add the data or fields, that is private long ID, private string first name, private string last name, private string username, and the skill set. So for that we need to create the skill DTO, and I think skill DTO is already exists, in which we have the ID and the name. Okay, so go to the user DTO and I will say that private skill DTO, skill DTO at the rate data and at the rate JSON include the value will be non-null. Yes. So we have set up the user DTO. What we will do now, we will create the object of user DTO. The user DTO object equals to new user DTO. Instead of having the means instead of having a non-parameterized constructor, let me add the parameterized constructor here. At the head all argument constructor, go to the user service and create the object. First it is asking for the ID, so user dot get ID. Sorry for that, before that we need to save. So user repository dot save the user, and after that it is receiving the user dot first name, user dot last name, user dot get username, and they are asking for the skill DTO. So for that you need to go with the skill set dot for each, and instead of having the skill DTO, Sorry guys, I missed one thing that inside the user detail I have created the skill detail, but the user will contain the set of skill detail because user can have multiple skills. So let's change it to the set of skill detail, and after that what we need to do, we need to use a set of skill detail, skill detail new set and skill set dot for each skill object आ गया. What we need to do now, that is a skill dto dot add a new skill dto object in which it will contain the skill dot get id, and the second parameter will contain skill dot get name. In this way we will have the skill dto set. So let's pass this skill dto set to the our user dto object. So our user dto object is been completed, and we need to return the object now. For that what we will do, we will return a new response util of type user dto and then dot generate service response. The service message we will pass here, uh, service message, and here the API response, that is true, and inside the user dto I have passed, and after that we need to pass the HTTP status value. So HTTP status dot created, so, HTTP status dot created dot value. Let's create a service message here. So we have already skill related service messages, so same will be copied for the user. So let's copy this and paste it here, and instead of skill we will update it as a user. User is also the user, and instead of skill the user will be here, instead of skills users. So it will be the user, it will also be a user, and again the user. So we have given the message in the service messages. So let's add the message in the user service implementation class, that is user created successfully. So after that what we need to do, we need to handle the exception also. So for getting an exception, it can be a chance. So let's take it inside the try catch block. Surround with try catch block, and any of the exception can be occur. What we will do, we will throw the new exception, user exception. I think that exception I have not created yet. Let me create the user exception also. go to the exception package, and similarly for the skill exception we will create the user exception. So go to the class and create a user exception, and that user exception will extend the base exception, and it will contain the JSON include non-null. Value will be non-null, and we need to do is we need to construct the object. So let's add the constructor. Oh, let me override all the constructor here. Go to the source and do the construction from the superclass. And also add the serial version ID. So user exception is object is also been created. Now let's throw the user exception from the user service. So throw new user exception, and it will contain the message, status, and the object. So message will be inside the exception message. So exception message class is already created. Let's create the exception messages for user. So just copy and paste and change the skill to the user. So instead of skill, we will change it as a user for all. And just copying and paste to save the time. So we have created the user messages also for the exception handling. So go to the user service implementation class and add the exception message that use unable to you add the user or user add exception, and it is asking for the status. So status will be the http status dot internal server error dot value, and inside the data I am passing the same user form so that it can be find that these are the details which were uh, available for creating a user, and the exception has been created. Okay, so I think this is our the API is completed from this end. Let me check that something else left. So I don't think anything left, guys. So our add user API has been created and completed. In our next video we will test this API. So bye for now. Please don't forget to subscribe my channel. If you are new to my channel, kindly subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon. And if you are already a subscriber, then please press the bell icon if you are not getting my latest notification.